This video is brought to you by GameMaker, the free, fast, and easy-to-use 2D game engine that helps power modern classics like Undertale, Hotline Miami, and Hyper Light Drifter. Starter templates, official asset bundles, and a wealth of tutorials are available to help bring your ideas to life. And you can export and share your game for free on all non-console platforms. But you don't have to take my word for it, I'm just some jerk. We have an actual bona fide game maker on hand.
Oh shit, that's me. Yes, I've been using GameMaker for a long time. It's probably the most powerful and easiest to use engine for making 2D games out there, suitable for both amateurs and hardcore coders, and with all the Steam and console integration stuff for when you're ready to start monetizing your hobbies. I'm using it for my upcoming smash hit game, Starstruck Vagabond, which I assume will be a smash hit because GameMaker's that bloody great.
Head on over to the GameMaker link in the description to begin your game development journey today.
No one here.
Hello everyone, bit of a fuck up there, but now we're with you. My name's Yahtzee. Welcome to the Windbreakers podcast. I'm joined by Sebastian Ruiz, aka Frost.
Hello.
And I'm also joined by Marty Slaver, aka that fat Wisconsinite over there.
Sick boys unite.
And fittingly for a bunch of sick boys, we'll be talking about the weird in games. I guess we didn't really have much of a thesis beyond, hey, we all love weird games. I wish more games were weird.
Do we? Feel like there's a balance with pretentiousness. You know, you risk being called pretentious if you like any game that strays off the beaten path.
Sure.
Well, it's a natural desire for people who are sick of the usual committee-designed slop that comes in from AAA games. And for my part, my love of the weird is hand in hand with my love for indie games, especially like the solo-developed game. It's much easier for something to be weird if no one creating it has to explain it to anybody else on the development team.
Yeah, once you have to start like vocalizing your weirdness, you're like, oh, this is gonna be hard to.
But, now I'm explaining it. Yeah, I brought up this with regards to Undertale in an extra punctuation way back in the day. There's a lot of touches in Undertale that Toby Fox would probably have had trouble explaining to another creator had there been one.
Yeah, I think that's where when we get into it, that's why we see 99% of the games we talk about are probably going to be indie, and it's rare that you see AAA fully embrace the weird. You can have little sprinkles of weird, but it's rare that AAA goes fully weird.
Oh no!
Yeah, especially not these days. I mean, there's plenty of weird if you look at like the PS2 era of third-party games.
There you go. It's like we're talking old school. Hear me out. I want a plumber, and he's stomping the Goombas, and he's saving the princess.
Yeah, and fighting a chip every once in a while. Yeah.
Well, as is well known, a lot of the strange aspects of Mario were sort of necessities of the format. They gave him a moustache because the pixel resolution was so low, it was easier than bringing across the fact that he had a mouth. They gave him overalls because it was easier than bringing across any other sort of outfit with that low amount of pixels.
I'd like to think Miyamoto showed up in that outfit and was just like, no reason. The pixels are rough, you know.
Now he said, okay, our mascot is a tradesman. I don't know where the stereotypically Italian thing came in. I guess that was just followed on from the moustache.
Miyamoto is a big fan of a nice piping hot lasagna. That's why. That's where it came from.
Well, who isn't?
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo is one of, I would say, the few AAA companies that do still sort of embrace the weird and have been, you know, since the NES and SNES era. I mean, you could say one of the most sort of important quote unquote weird games is Earthbound. I feel like that is the weirdness in that is throughout the entirety of the game, from its mechanics to its visuals to its sound to its story, and that has trickled down and become sort of an urtext for a lot of weird indies.
It's very much patient zero for a certain subgenre of games in which we include Undertale, Lisa the Painful, Amori, and a bunch of other things.
Mm-hmm.
What was?
I mean,
what was that Mario? No, was it Luigi? What was that Nintendo Mario game? It was Luigi that you played on stream recently. You're an elephant.
Yeah, Mario Wonder.
Yeah,
Mario
that
Wonder.
was a day cool, night cool game. Dear God.
Yeah, Nintendo, even their big flagship tentpole games have weird shit about them. Like Mario and Zelda games are weird to their core. Like Majora's Mask is weird as shit. Like that took, and again, weird out of necessity of like, what do? We need to turn this around in 18 months. What do we do with the assets we have?
I have a theory that there's like two halves of Nintendo. There's the status quo Nintendo, the mundane Nintendo, who will just make the new Zelda that's just Zelda again, with hitting all the bases and stuff. And then once something is established, then that team sort of goes away and gets working on the next Star Fox or whatever, and then the fucking all right, let's see what we can get away with team moves in.
Yeah. We're making a game just with Tingle. We're gonna see what's going on here.
So they made Ocarina of Time, like the status quo conservative branch of Nintendo makes Ocarina of Time, and then that was established, and they were like, okay, we've done the Link rescues Zelda from Ganondorf shit. Over to the weird guys, and then the weird guys make Majora's Mask.
Yeah,
I think you can see a similar pattern with Paper Mario 2, and the games that followed Wind Waker in canon. Like Phantom Hourglass.
I mean, what if even like teams? What if it's the same team?
I mean, that's
I was formal, and now I'm just smoking haters and drinking absinthe while I'm making up the follow up.
That's Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild feels relatively normal to me, whereas Tears of the Kingdom, they're like, what if you can build a mech with a giant penis flamethrower? Like, sure,
yeah.
Like, have you do it.
Even in Breath of the Wild, what's with the weird tree guy who shakes his maracas?
Oh my God, has do best do.
Yeah.
Who else? Before we obviously are going to devote a ton of time to indies, who else in the sort of the AAA space would you say? Kojima is obviously the next one that comes to mind in terms of again, maybe that's part of it's the authorship, but being able to
well, if you can't get
ideas into more traditional games.
If you can't get soloists, fucking auteurs is the next best thing. Kojima being the best example. An auteur who can somehow manage to work with a team, which is a rare skill.
Yeah.
But take a look at the fucking thumbnail. Katamari Damacy, the guy who made that, who went on to make Nobby Nobby Boy and various other things that didn't make any sense. Also, shout out to my boy Suda51 as well.
Yeah. Who made Yakuza?
Don't know.
Nagoshi-san? That was that I feel like Yakuza, like Sega has leaned into the weirdness in a way that like Sonic, some of Sonic feels weird, but I don't know if they realize they're weird.
Japanese weird is extra weird from our perspective because it's also from a foreign culture.
Yeah.
But even considering that, the Japanese do like a bit of weird.
Yeah. The Yakuza games, I mean, especially the side quests in them, the kind of the tonal shifts, which feel like have gotten even more and more pronounced throughout the series.
I think that's relating to the fact that Japanese development still has this culture of auteurism baked into it. There's always like a director nominated to apply their vision to the game, however true that might actually be. Whereas Western game development is still very much committee driven in the AAA realms.
It also feels like there's more of a free-flowing attitude to kind of experiment with tones, and you get that in anime and manga, the same thing. Whereas in a lot of sort of bigger Western stories, there's a fear to oscillate from sincere to completely batshit gonzo crazy. You don't see that. You don't see Naughty Dog games swing all the way. You don't see a Ken Levine game swing all the way, or a BioWare game.
Well, it was pretty weird that Uncharted 3 spends all that time referencing Guybrush Threepwood. Or is it 4? The one with pirates.
Yeah. I think that's like maybe an auteur being able to be like, hey, this was a thing that really inspired me as a storyteller as a kid growing up. So I'm just going to flex my creativity and put this in here.
I wonder if it's like a cultural thing. Because Japan creates a lot of weird media partly because in like daily life it's all very straight laced and orderly and buttoned down.
I think you need to, otherwise you're
like
repressed, right?
Yeah,
As a society, so you need somewhere to really let you freak out.
It's got to come out somewhere. I think British culture shows a lot of this as well.
Your cynicism drips over everything. What do you mean?
Well, sort of British comedy can be very black and very weird and out there.
As opposed to the people.
Yeah, because the people are very sort of emotionally repressed and straight-laced in like everyday life. That's how you're expected to be. And so, like, you know, the frustration builds and the weird stuff leaks out.
The weird stuff leaks out. I feel like I think of the platform holders, Xbox is the least weird. I don't think Xbox does a lot of weird stuff. I think their games
Hi-Fi Rush. No, that was Bethesda.
Yeah, but that was under the Xbox umbrella. But even that like felt familiar weird.
Yeah, and clearly Xbox have demonstrated they've seen no value in the uniqueness of Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah. Like I don't associate your Halos or your Gears of War or your Microsoft Flight Sims or even like core Bethesda games, Skyrim or Fallout necessarily with weird. PlayStation I feel like had a weird era, especially that PS2 era going into the PS3 era where they were leaning on Japan studios with stuff like Tokyo Jungle and Puppeteer and Rain.
There's also a much smaller gap between indies and AAAs in the PS2 era. There was a lot of third-party development.
Well, yeah,
that's why there was a lot of weird third-party games and lots of shovelware on the PS2 as well.
Yeah, I remember one of the standout things about the original Katamari Damacy was it was $20, which was kind of unheard of for just a new release game at the time. Obviously now with the rise of indie, you know, games are anywhere from free to I guess now fucking $79.99 or whatever. You mentioned Suda and Swery are two auteurs that kind of stand out to me as being able to embrace the weird.
But weird in games, of course, has been a presence since the very beginning. I'm thinking now of the British bedroom programmer scene who made games for the Commodore 64 and the Spectrum around the time that the US was going through its difficult Atari period.
Yeah.
There was a lot of very weird concepts being realized by developers like Jeff Minter, who made games like Attack of the Mutant Camels on the Commodore 64, which was just a game where there are mutant camels being attacked.
And then there were games like interactive kind of documentary history about Jeff Minter. Have you seen that at all?
Can't say I have, but I'm sure it was interesting stuff.
Yeah.
What is it with America not being able to take weird to public, right? I feel like most of the weird scene was Flash games.
But we all got quite into Animal Well recently. And when I first played Animal Well, my first thought was, this really reminds me of the old Commodore 64 bedroom program era. This really feels like one of those room-by-room platform games where you just have to dodge really weird out there enemies, like just a boot or a dog that's half in and half out of a bucket running back and forth that you have to jump over. Games like Chucky Egg or Jet Set Willy would be full of that kind of thing. And it really feels like Animal Well calls back to that.
It has to be so set into an aesthetic to really pop off, I think, here in the Western side. Like, weird game, I'm thinking Cuphead, but is it really weird? You know, it's a well-established rubber hose weird.
It's weird.
The older cartoons, they have there's a trouble with the out there.
We want to try to define what we mean by weird because it's hard. Again, that's like that pornography thing of I know it when I see it. Like,
why define? Why not just? What's your favorite kind of weird?
My favorite kind of weird is the weird that feels like you're in another person's stream of consciousness.
There we go. I like this.
Okay, I like that.
What are you feeling, Marty?
Like Suda 5-1 stuff. Like, why is there just a random boss fight where it's based on how many times you shoot each other rather than how much actual damage you do, and then the winner is crushed by a giant statue head falling from above? Why did that make sense to Suda 5-1? What was going through his mind? Right. That's the kind of thing I'm interested in.
Yeah, I guess mine kind of part and parcel with that is I feel like my kind of weirdness is the weirdness that like pushes up against the preconceived walls, I guess, of what we see in the medium and kind of expands the boundaries for what you could do. Having a boss fight, you're like, ooh, I didn't know you could do that. Like, the first time I played a game where you broke the fourth wall, it was like, ooh, I didn't know that was on the menu. I didn't know that was kosher. So that's why I'm very forgiving by any game that does something new and takes a big swing. I'm able to be like, okay, I really appreciate this, even though X, Y, and Z did not work for me. Which kind of Indica was the game that we all played recently. That one of the things that helped sparked this. But Indica has a lot of problems with it. But to me, I'm like, this is a big swing, and I appreciate a big swing.
I like this. All right, so you're in the stream of consciousness. You're in the same vein, but also like from a fundamental and a mechanical kind of perspective.
You like the risk taking.
I do.
Because that's basically what indie games are. They take the risks where the AAA are just doing what makes the money.
Yeah.
I like that. I like it somewhere in between the two, but I also like them to have sort of a conscious understanding of the culture that we're in. That's why Indica kind of fell flat to me, because that ending is very like 2013 our atheist is popping off, and like, okay, where did you go from there? Whereas it did have an interesting bit where they're walking her out and they're talking about the father that became a serial killer because he's kind of gaming, dogma in a way where it's like it's almost justified to kill children. And I'm like, those are weird thoughts that I remember having like in high school where you're just high as hell and you're like, there's a loophole here, but it's not a good one. And it's that sort of far out thinking, but it's like alongside keeping with the culture. It's sort of like that game that you told us about, Marty, the Zelda one, but it's like Galaga and a little F1.
Oh yeah,
F-Zero.
mini shoot adventures.
Where I go, if you think about it, it's weird because you're a little pilot on a little ship, and everything's a little ship, and it's all organized in that way. But it's not far out from what we're experiencing right now. You know what I mean? So I do like the mechanical. I like the what the hell was this person thinking? But I also want something that almost like hits back to the culture.
Yeah, and I feel like we see that with a lot of the games that kind of blow up. It feels like you can almost draw a line between their success and something that kind of makes sense. Like going back to Nintendo, something like WarioWare feels like a game that was even ahead of its time to the how we consume things now, with people just scrolling through endless feeds of TikToks or Instagram Reels or anything, or Twitter, Reddit. And WarioWare 10 years beforehand really sort of understood that like our attention span is tiny, and so we'll give you these kind of bite-sized micro doses of stimulus.
Yeah, I was going to bring up WarioWare. That's definitely something from Nintendo's weird cupboard. It's related to another series called Rhythm Heaven.
Oh yeah,
which has a similar sort of weird aesthetic. I think it's got creators in common.
Yeah, and I mean Nintendo's also leading into like the weirdness of input methods, right? Of what if we have a touch screen, and these aren't all wins, but what if we have motion controls? Like what if we build the thing around that? And I feel like you're able to get some weird ideas out of that.
Well, so often the establishment starts out as the weird outlier creative risk take.
Yeah, this disgusting WASD format everyone uses nowadays.
Yeah. WASD was once through people. And that's another thing to appreciate about the weird. It's it could be, as you say, with WarioWare, it could be the next wave of the next big thing. That's you never know, would you? Games. You wouldn't know what the next big thing would be without experimentation.
Yeah, exactly. and that's why I say you kind of need to be aware of the culture that you're around, because when does weird just become the status quo?
Exactly. There's probably a lot of weird things that we accept as the common practice in video games these days. That if we looked back on with a sort of Doug Stanhope, if this didn't exist, would you invent it sort of attitude?
Yeah.
Would probably make you pause for thought. Like the whole live system in video games, which only existed in arcade games to like bilk money out of people, and which just stuck around in home games for way too long until someone said, "Hey, wait a minute, do we actually need this? This seems weird."
See, have you guys seen the new system though? It's a live system, sure, but it only takes a life away if you take direct damage. Animal Well had this, that shoot 'em up game I was talking to Marty about. That has that as well. If you fall off, that's not taking a life away. It's only when you get hit.
Yeah, Mario Wonder has a thing, because I've been playing it with the girls. It has a thing where if you like get hit or lose a life, you turn into a ghost, And rather than losing a life, you've got 5 seconds for another player to touch you, and then you can come back to life without having to lose a life.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's still a presence. It still means that green mushrooms have a purpose, as opposed to in Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
Is there a weird that doesn't resonate with you guys? To me, they're low random humor. Rarely
Yes.
gets me.
Yes. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Just something that feels like it's trying too hard.
Yeah.
Like Borderlands always feels like it's trying too hard to be wacky.
While wearing a tie, though. No, it's wearing that T-shirt with the tie graphic.
Yeah.
From like 2009. Because I'm fun at parties.
All right, here's a question.
Yeah.
What would be your example of a AAA weird thing?
Okay. What's it?
What's
the guy
a
that got
weird...
arrested for tax dodging? No.
Oh, Yuji Naka?
Yuji Naka. So that's pretty weird.
I think a lot of the NPCs and mechanics and way things are explained in FromSoft games, I would put in the weird column. Oh, I'm sorry.
he's my favorite weirdo. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like Miyazaki loves sprinkling a couple weird dudes across his games. Just weird mechanics that just feel like world tendency and stuff like that, and even the invasion system and the note system feel very strange, but now just feel a part of the DNA of those games.
Is there anything from the land of AAA Western developed committee designed games that feels like an attempt at weird? Because the only thing that comes to mind is Sunset Overdrive, and you know how I feel about that.
Todd Howard constantly selling Skyrim was kind of weird.
Just constantly selling the same thing over and over.
Bless you. Yeah.
I guess one of the weirds I don't like that we see now more and more with especially these multiplayer games is I don't get the tie-in, like the appeal of, look, all my Gundams coming to fucking Call of Duty. Like, what?
Oh, okay.
What? I don't get. Like, you can ride a chocobo in Assassin's Creed, or you could put a couple noodle head on your Final Fantasy character. It's just kind of like, when you
talk about weird, I don't like the word magenta springs to mind. The whole approach of games like Fortnite to have to sort of present that sort of weird bohemian punk attitude, even though it's still underneath, it's still just a corporate design slop. I mean, the whole fact that you could dress up as literally anything from Darth Vader to a hot dog in Fortnite is the kind of weirdness that just reflects to me a complete lack of artistic direction, as opposed to a weird attempt to be express weird arty ideas.
Yeah, because you're given templates. Whereas in VR chat, that took off because yes, you could be anything. So it would be weird to see like Ugandan Knuckles. Like why is he in here screaming at people with such a thick accent? And like it's Vader, but he's dressed up in streetwear.
He's dabbing, he's flossing.
Yeah, so like, to have this, like, you can be Vader, but you're not allowed to mess with the integrity of my design in any sort of way. Like, that's not weird at all.
Well, and at the same time, like, Fortnite tried to be very sincere with that. Do you remember that, like, Martin Luther King, the Civil Rights Interactive Museum they put in the game?
No, what?
Yeah.
I love corporate
Jesus Christ,
tone
I didn't
deafness.
just make this up, did I?
You sure did. Right next to what? The Holocaust Museum?
Fortnite MLK event.
I love corporate tone deafness.
That's as close as they get to being weird. They had like an MLK tribute inside the game. And it was one of those things that was well-intentioned, and I would go as far to say well-made, but when juxtaposed with the fact that, like, fucking Rick and Morty are running around with Captain America and shit like that is just weird.
That's very corporate.
I don't think they do it intentionally, but it's instances like that. Their tone deafness is just so weird and funny to me.
Yeah.
See, weird for me is hand in hand with artistry. I like the lone developer's single vision. I like the thing that only makes sense to one person, and this is probably related to the fact that I am the sort of person who genuinely likes walking around a modern art museum, looking at things and trying to understand what thought processes on the artist's part went into it.
Yeah,
I like that. Yeah, except instead of a modern art museum, I like, frequenting bars, and you just kind of see one dude that's a little too out of it, and he just starts talking wise. just cracking wisdom at you, like I'm gonna hold that forever. I hope to be that man one day.
In vino veritas, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now I'm just trying to think, like, what, like, can you think of any Western AAA dev that's like doing weird and doing
I
weird
think
well?
of AA, a lot of AA, not triple.
Yeah.
Like Devolver Digital and Annapurna, they tend to be the weirdos.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm just going down with the list of recent reviews.
Weird Western, not intentionally.
Not
Yeah,
really.
I guess in terms of first party studios, Double Fine, I see someone in the chat mention they still feel like they have kind of a unique thumbprint that they're able to put on their games. And
Yeah,
that continues, but we'll see under Microsoft's reign.
I mean, there's no like. I don't feel like there's a single vision there anymore. I think they've got a bunch of different creative leads.
Yeah,
making their stuff.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, Frost, about sort of being tapped into the culture, and I see. I feel like someone who kind of rose through that and understood something before it became a thing was Bennett Foddy, and like putting out a thing like QWOP, which felt like kind of niche, and it was like, oh, we can like use movement and struggle and physical comedy to have this really quick experience, and then moving on to Getting Up. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but there was something to be had in, we can take that struggle and bottle it up, and people will watch by the hundreds of thousands of people struggle. And there was that same game that came out recently where you just keep jumping high into the sky, like the 3D. There's almost like Gary's Mod, Junk in the Sky, and you keep going higher
Only
and higher.
Up?
Yeah, I think Only Up. Yeah, and if you fall, you just lose. And there's people who play for 8 hours and they just fall and they lose.
Yeah, those are strange ones because those were always around, either Flash games or mods. So it is almost strange to see. It's like walking into a back alley and you see the Mona Lisa. You're like, what?
Yeah.
What? Or walking into the Louvre and you see like your friend's painting that he drew in 6th grade, and you're like, oh, why is that in here?
Yeah. And I
It
guess
is, and why so many people can just like, it's just streamer bait. It's like, no, it's a very weird moment that we're sharing right now, all together.
Yeah.
Same with like Untitled Goose Game. I know it come off as very gimmicky, memey novelty. To me, I like how it was just a reverse stealth game. Where imagine if I was the exclamation mark that goes over the guard's head every time.
Yeah.
Just wank, wank.
Yeah.
I think that was another game that had a very British sensibility to it. I mean, aside from
farmers' caps, they might have been.
Yeah, aside from the fact that one of the objectives was to make an old man fall on his bum. That had a very sort of Beano Comics sort of childish rejection of authority vibe to it that a lot of British media shares.
Yeah, that's very Wodehouse, isn't it? Sometimes he writes those little stories about animals just trying to do their thing, not knowing what they're going for. Shoot, I'm still itching on that AAA, but I feel like I might just give up on it and get straight into the indies. And the AA games.
I'm forever tempted if it weren't for the fact that reviewing AAA games was always a big draw.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant just for this conversation, not giving up on it as a career.
No, well, if it's if it were down to me,
sure.
I mean, you gotta hope AAA will impress you sometime. I mean, Alan Wake 2 had a lot of weird bits in it.
I didn't want to say it,
And I actually appreciated the music video bit. But it's a rare case of where there actually is like an actual auteur face behind it. I mean, and in front of it, because he casts himself in the game in like multiple different roles. Egotistical prick.
I like that sort of like writer weird, I guess. So very Alice in Wonderland. Or isn't this odd? But it is very much a metaphor for other things and very much placed in logic. So I'll take it. It's about as creative as a weird can get while still not being too fabricated.
I think it's a bit up itself in a very writerly sort of way, as you say.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I said in my review of Alan Wake 2 that any work of fiction about a work of fiction that overwrites reality is sort of inherently up itself and sort of sucking off creatives as a theme.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
what was the last weird AAA game? My mind keeps going Far Cry 3.
I would have said that on Wake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Alan Wake 2 feels like formally very strange. Like it's mixed media usage.
Yeah.
Yeah, Far Cry 3, like just 3 vanilla is weird to you?
Yeah. Well, it's as weird as they could get because like, oh, he's high.
Well, there's a
Sure.
lot of hallucinatory moments.
Yeah.
In,
Like Blood
Far
Dragon,
Cry.
I would say lean into that. Ubisoft feels like I guess Rabbids aside feel surprisingly unweird. They feel very normal. Assassin's Creed, The Division, they all feel very normal.
They used to have more of a creative spirit, like the whole PS2 era, Beyond Good and Evil, Prince of Persia, Sands of Time.
Yeah.
Rabbids, as we say.
Yeah.
But these days, they're a business.
Yeah.
These days, they're just trying to make what makes the money with the nice, familiar themes.
Yeah.
Oh, David Cage, people mentioning in the chat. That's a AAA weirdness magnet.
There you go.
I think
he does take big swings.
I mean, his games do feel weird, but I think that's more down to the fact that he doesn't really get human relationships.
Yeah.
He's so me.
Like weird. He's so me for real.
He's so me for real.
Whereas a lot of these Japanese games feel very self-aware of their weirdness, he almost doesn't. He has like a Tommy Wiseau thing, which I guess you could argue maybe Tommy does understand it and he's like an incredible performance artist, but
no, I think David Cage buys into his own hype, probably because he has a lot of enablers at Sony. Saying, no, really, your game will be a big seller and we want you to make another exclusive for us.
Yeah, those were tentpole games, and now he's making a fucking Star Wars game. I mean, who knows if that'll ever come out.
How the fuck did that happen? I guess Disney didn't do their due diligence on that one, I fear.
Surely he knows, or he thinks too much on it. What was that tweet? David Cage, can a robot learn to be human? Yoko Taro, can a human? Cage, what? Yoko Taro, can a human learn to be human? Cage, I don't get
it. Yeah, Nier is another good example. Nier gets weird. Yeah, Nier is not afraid to get weird. There's a lot of elements of Final Fantasy VII that were weird. Final Fantasy 16 was very much not weird, whereas Final Fantasy 7, I think Final Fantasy 7, maybe they could have shared a little bit. 7 could have used a little bit, been a little more serious at times, and 16 could have definitely loosened up a little bit.
Almost fallen off since we lost mascots, I guess. You know, it was easier to be weird back then. Now you almost have to be sensible. Does Riot count? League of Legends? That's kind of a weird game.
The hero shooter?
Well, not just a hero shooter, but the concept of like, we don't have wars, we play a MOBA to decide the war.
Yeah.
It's
these are our heroes. Yeah. What about Rockstar? Do we think Rockstar's weird? Or do they kitchen sink it so much that there's weirdness inside of their games?
I guess.
Well, there's certainly a very strong element of satire in the Grand Theft Auto games, especially 5. It's very overtly like satire of modern society.
Yeah.
But as for weird, then I wouldn't say so. No, it's
maybe like quests or like specific mechanics, like the fact that someone like took time to shrink horses' testicles depending on the weather.
I just put that down to developers having too much time on their hands when they're waiting on all the other.
You're salaried, yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to look busy.
Yeah. No. Yeah, we also had the era, which seems to be gone, or at least maybe it's just in mobile, of the bizarre licensed game of why did you even make a game out of this, of Home Improvement or the Burger King games or Shaq Fu or
that was a sort of
metal game where you're just like Bob Van Dam driving a dump truck.
That was a weird element of that era of games that came from a lack of understanding of video games on the part of big IP holders.
Yeah.
Fun though. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Fun in a sort of, hey, look at that weird guy who's high and doing a dance on the street corner and doesn't know that everyone's taking the piss out of him.
Sure.
David Cage again. That guy.
Oh, right, David.
Then. Onto the ice cream. We've had our veggies now, the indies. What are the weirdos, the freaks that just stand out?
Well, the last one Well, the last one that I gave me that vibe was, of course, Children of the Sun.
Yeah.
That was a great one. I mean,
Yeah.
just even recently, Buckshot Roulette.
Oh yes, yes.
What's going on here?
I mean, it's almost feels like a lot of indie games are sort of turning against the weird auteur vision. There's a lot of indie games who are trying to imitate the AAA attitudes.
Yeah, I don't know. Like for a moment there, I felt indie was losing its spirit, so to say, where you just see so many defeated developers going, I did the thing, I put the roguelike elements in and the RPG elements in and the game elements in there, and they didn't sell. What happened? Well, if I got one game in me before I go poor, I might as well just talk about playing with my peanuts and shooting some. Like it's so good. Even in the more restrained ones, like Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom. That was a proper weirdo going on there.
Yeah, I've played a lot of indie games and AA games that are just, teal-colored hair person in sci-fi world goes through standard sort of struggle, and I feel my eyes glazing over very quickly playing that sort of thing. Oh, it's a cyberpunk traversal-focused boomer shooter.
Is there like a saturation point where things just don't feel weird anymore? Like something is like we talked about the Earthbound like, where like Earthbound was unique because there was nothing else like it, whereas now it feels like every few months there's a game inspired by Earthbound. Like just this weekend, this game Athenian Rhapsody came out that was inspired by like Earthbound and Undertale, and it's almost, is there a certain point where weird becomes so common that it's just no longer weird?
Well, typically I'd say the point where the corporate committee design developer makes their version of something is the point where there's clearly too much of something.
Like once the brand account starts tweeting about the joke is dead. Like, okay, the brand has gotten this. It's time to move on.
Yeah, it's once you start thinking, I guess once you think the formula for weird is solved, that it starts to feel formulaic, and that's when it starts to feel like, okay, this is more of the same. Like the survival craft genre was kind of very samey, and now you got Power World and Enshrouded coming through, where it's like, what if Pokemon and guns, Enshrouded? What if voxels again? I
mean, what we're really talking about here is just innovation. I mean, there's a point where innovation becomes old news, and then it's time for a new innovation to come along and take a risk.
You can even go to old stuff. It's just more so like, we're just using the same thing. It's innovation as much as it is variety. And that's why I think you need some cultural awareness to go, okay, we're having too much of this kind of game. Let's give them like something new. Roguelikes, we're just feeling same old. And now you got dude who goes poker, but roguelike. So now you're starting to get these offshoots of like, all right, pool, but poker. And that'll eventually oversaturate too, but then we move on to the next thing.
Yeah, Balatro almost feels at the point of deconstruction. Like we've gone so far, now we're just breaking it down to its most basic elements.
Lona Misa or whatever it were, Some are just deconstructions. The 20 Mazes, that's a little weirdo game, but it's mazes.
That's a good little weird game. I love it.
Oh, did you guys try Mullet Mad Jack?
Yeah.
Not yet.
That is
good weird.
That feels like the first person shooter broken down. It's literally just run from room to room, shoot one guy and run to the next. You've got like a 10-second timer. You get like 3 seconds extra time every time you shoot someone. And it's just like the first person shooter experience boiled down to like a sequence of moment to moment interactions.
Okay. A little bit like Hotline Miami almost.
Sort of, but roguelike, so it's just the same room over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw like over the past few years, speaking of deconstructing things like Baba Is You, kind of deconstructing like the literal rules of a puzzle game. Neon White, I thought, did a great job of like taking the idea of speedrunning and boiling it down while adding this sort of weird veneer over it, and then
sort of deconstructing the classic sort of movement shooter as well.
And then Hypnospace Outlaw is the other one that stood out to me, which is you're kind of a private eye on a alternate version of the 90s internet, like the web, and you navigate the internet trying to like solve these kind of crimes, but you're navigating these fictional websites that feel like what the internet felt like to those of us old enough to remember it in its mid to late 90s.
Now that was a satire, wasn't it? Hypnospace Outlaw, very satirical.
Oh God, look at that thing.
And I know they're working on a sequel that's sort of taking place on a more like mid-aughts, like early to mid-aughts internet, which I'm excited about.
Perhaps it'll reference the Something Awful forums.
Since it is as much innovation and variety, what's the kind of weird you guys are looking forward to? Or is there a weird that you're kind of getting tired of now?
Well, getting pretty tired of magenta haircuts.
Yeah.
I'm still a sucker for put me in a weird space and let me just walk around. I know this is my sense of place thing, but I'm like, I've talked about that Radiohead Kid Amnesia sort of art exhibit thing. Games like Jazz Punk or 30 Flights 11, Cosmo D's games. Like I like just like put me in a weird space. You don't even need to fill it with mechanics. Like it's just let me sort of vibe out a little bit and wander around and see. I feel like that's the easiest way to, like Yahtzee, what you were saying is like cracking open someone's head and being like, what's going on in here? Let me see what's going on inside your...
Pools did a number on you, didn't it?
Yeah, Pools absolutely did a number. You don't got to do anything. You don't got to do anything. I'll just walk around.
See, there's a little gameplay I would like Escorn, you know? There were puzzles here. It felt like just one big, meaty biomechanical warehouse.
Yeah.
You could at the very least, you could just throw in like a collectathon element if you want to make a game about exploring an environment. Just find all the Pac-Man skills or whatever.
Yeah, the widgets, the doodads.
Little trophy, little something going on there. Yeah, I could see that. Keep it weird. Keep
it
on
weird.
messing with things.
Yeah. Speaking of weird,
I like weird pitches.
Speaking of weird, let's go to the super chats and listen to what all the internet weirdos have to say.
I saved a couple of the games I wanted to talk about because I saw them get brought up in the super chats. I saved them for you, chat.
Fair enough. Dr. Theo gives $2 and says, what do you consider too weird? Like trying too hard?
Hello Neighbor 2.
What's that?
Hello Neighbor 2. The first game was like little odd, little surreal, little dark, and some lore hunting. The second one, that's all. Like the puzzles didn't matter. He just said, "Let's just make it all as weird looking as possible." And there was absolutely no substance under that surface. And he's asking MatPat, like, "Hey, don't you want to dissect this? Don't you and your community of lore finders want to find everything in here?" Like, no, this
is something I've said. I think I've said many times before. I love the kind of game that feels like it didn't give a shit. And which is a very different thing to actually not giving a shit.
It's Saints Row 4.
Saints Row 4 feels like a game that doesn't give a shit in the way that I like. But they put an awful lot of work into feeling like it doesn't give a shit. And it can very easily feel like a game is trying too hard. Sunset Overdrive is a game that feels like it tries too hard for me. So there needs to be a sense of frivolity and lack of restraint that is also not trying to. It doesn't feel like it's trying to lean into it.
I feel like I'm a hard mark for it's something familiar or wholesome, but now we're adding tits and swears and blood to it. Like even to it, like the Pal World thing never did anything for me because it was like it's Pokemon, but they got guns and there's slavery. I'm like, okay. Like it feels a little kind of memey, edgelordy. I don't know, like that Conker's Bad Fur Day also never, like as someone who was really a fan of those 3D platformers at the time and who is a fan of really vulgar crafts humor, like that being the focal point just didn't do it for me. Same thing like that Hellpie game. I'm like, why are we doing this?
Hellpie is the absolute I'm weird for the sake of being weird.
Yeah.
And there's no rhyme or reason to this outside of I just want to be.
And it's kind of a bummer because like at its core was like a pretty solid 3D character platformer. But yeah.
Then Dr. Theo gives another $5 and says, what is a weird horror game? Because of the nature of the genre, it is naturally weird, but what is a particularly weird game that you know of? See, weird and horror go together pretty well too. Mm-hmm. I've always felt like Japanese horror games feel better to me just because the fact that they come from a foreign culture adds an extra element of weird that sort of enhances the sense of unease one gets from horror. Silent Hill being a very prominent example. Fatal Frame.
Mm-hmm.
A weird horror game. Rule of Rose. Who remembers that?
Oh, yeah. I've never played it. I've only watched video essays on it.
I love a horror game that you could never sum up in 10 words or less to another person. Silent Hill 4 would be another good one for me.
Yeah, that might be the most recent weird one I've played. There's this game. It's free on itch.io. I'm putting it in the chat, called Greener Grass Awaits. And it is a first person golfing game, and you're at a golf range, and you have to kind of do everything. So you like look down at your club, you have to look over at the hole, look down at your club, hit it. You have to like take your bag with you that has your clubs. You have to like move it from hole to hole. It's very like you're doing things it's like very meticulously. And you play a couple holes, the sun starts to go down, and the game starts to become a little ominous and a little creepy. And I don't want to give away exactly what it is, but it takes that sort of workmanship, having to go through the rhythm of doing all this stuff, and when it injects something ominous into it, it's really fucking effective for a free game, pay what you want thing on itch.io. Highly recommended. Greener Grass Awaits.
I'm intrigued.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, shoot. I forgot what it was called. There has been a strange influx of weird horror, because horror is a strange one. You can lean too far into like, okay, this is psychedelic, this is surreal, this is eldritch, right? It's hard to go just straight up weird. Yeah, but there's a lot of horror games nowadays that they look on the surface like they're normal games, and then they start, as Marty said, they get sinister, they get ominous, and that's just the thing that plays with you. Some of them are even getting to the point like pools where they go, "There's nothing here," or "Is there?"
Yeah.
No, there's definitely nothing here. It's like it's just
that was. Did that start with Doki Doki Literature Club? Do you think?
Shoot,
Or it starts out as a. Maybe starts out as like a. Well, Doki Doki Literature Club was very much trying to like pull a trick on the player. Frog Fractions, I think, was fairly openly surreal from the beginning. Doki Doki was like, it presents itself as a standard visual novel, and then it turns sinister in a quite severe way halfway through.
Yeah.
I don't. Well, it was for the time. I found Danganronpa even like weirder because it was just so. Like, this is Saw, but Weeby.
Yeah,
Weeby Saw with a big,
big
teddy bear mascot.
Yes, just a big sword that goes whip, 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 whip.
There you go. That's it. The Bunny Graveyard. Overwhelmingly positive. I don't think it's completely done. It might be going off in chapters, and it presents itself as like this cutesy point and click adventure game. You even get like a Mickey Mouse type glove hand that gets to do all these things, and you're like, okay, play some basketball and old type of mini games, but things aren't what they seem. Very almost M. Night Shyamalan, and that's what makes them weird. Not so much the actual horror elements, but the why did you make this game, as Yahtzee puts it. Like who makes these kind of games?
I think it's emotional.
Well, got stuck on that topic for a while, didn't we? Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, should there be a Tropic of Weird about that separates between weird stroke post-punk games and whatever's considered fetish territory, like Demolition Girl? Oh, I remember Demolition Girl. Speaking of the iffy third-party era of PS2 games, I seen this one game called Demolition Girl that had just been out in like my local EB Games in the bargain bin for like $2. For as long as I could remember, I thought, you know what, fuck it, let's give it a try. Maybe it's a hidden gem. And the premise was there's this giant bikini girl. It's a Japanese game, of course. A giant bikini girl walking around a city like Godzilla, just stepping on things. And you're a helicopter pilot, and you got to drive around her, fly around her, and your mission is to survey the threat caused by the Demolition Girl by taking strategic pictures of her. And it was that point I realized, this is someone's fetish. This is a game for someone's fetish that has for whatever reason has been localized as in the West.
Yeah. Hey, we're talking about you like cracking someone's head open and seeing what's inside. That's
vor.
Sometimes you get some of that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get vor.
I don't know. That's sort of a step too far for me. Makes you feel a little bit icky.
Yeah.
When you realize someone made it specifically to jerk off to it.
That's how I feel watching Quentin Tarantino's movies sometimes.
Foot fetishists and all that.
Like She poured a drink down her feet. You could have just a straw would have been okay.
Hjort87 gives 50 Danish kroner and says, I've always been fond of the absurd humour. For example, the old Madness game and cartoons on Newgrounds. A simple 2D shooter, a man, a sheriff, and Jesus. Newgrounds. There was a time when that was... There was a time in like Web 1.0 days when that was just a big old graffiti wall for the internet to play with.
Yeah, E-Bombs World. I remember I just never really got into them.
Well, before YouTube was a thing, Flash games was where we got our interactive entertainment.
Yeah.
I do like me absurd humor. There's one feller who his whole game is like a kind of hidden object sort of thing, but you're in graffitied Renaissance paintings type thing. It's really weird to look at. It gives me a headache after a few minutes, and I have to leave. And then there was that one game during the last Next Fest where you're a toaster, and you're trying to get into a bathtub to assassinate people.
Beautiful. That's the sequel to I Am Bread.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I Am Bread, which was about being a piece of bread trying to get inside a toaster.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, games are also. I think games can be shortened to the point and just have like a single punchline. Like that Pineapple on Pizza is a 10-minute thing that has a punchline, and I feel like that's a thing like games that short that could just focus on one thing are able to do.
I did love that. Yeah.
That
game at the very moment just go, so that was
just long enough to where it doesn't overstay its welcome, and
concept games. Yeah. I mean, there's not a full game in it, but it's the world is richer for its presence.
Yeah, exactly.
Just Existing 45 gives 5 Canadians and says, hey guys, just want to say thank you for always being there. Makes me feel part of a community. Lots of love. Keep being awesome. Yahtzee is the GOAT. Hell, you don't just feel like part of a community. You are part of a community, Just Existing 45. Welcome to the community.
And you can become an even bigger member of the community by purchasing Starstruck Vagabond, available on Steam this Friday. Also, Yahtzee's birthday.
Ooh, get in on the conversation. Get in before it's the next big thing. Then you could say, hey, I was into this before it was cool.
Yeah. Honey, I joined a cult, which is actually a game.
I'll bet.
Yeah. I mean, also the premise of Children of the Sun.
There you go. Rafael Sampaio gives $5 and says, celebratory super chat for catching this live for once.
Hey, thank you.
Congratulations.
Well done. And then he comes back with $5 and says, I miss the days of the PS2 era when weird games could get an actual budget. Shout out to Katamari Galaxy. Damacy, I think you meant to say there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But yes.
Even EA was in on the weird. Like, there was a bit of weirdness to the Need for Speed era. The street sports. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, the NBA street games, those kind of things. Yeah.
Well, even Tony Hawk. All right.
Tony Hawk had some weirdness to it. Mr. Mosquito. I feel like Mr. Mosquito was towing the line between someone's fetish and being a pretty cool game where you're a mosquito.
Where is the line for fetish?
I think there was a publisher for a while that would just like buy up a load of obscure Japanese games and localize them, and I think Mr. Mosquito was one of those.
There's also an interesting development, like a tree you can run down that game Tulip is on, which is definitely a strange game where you just get a little kissing simulator, a little kissing village. It's like Animal Crossing, but you just got to get as many kisses as you can in there. Yeah,
it was definitely a sort of progenitor of the cozy game genre that exists in a weird place. Wesley Thomas gives $2 Canadian and says, have any of you played LSD Dream Emulator? I know it by reputation, Wesley Thomas. Never played it myself.
I've played it on emulator when I was talking about games where you just get dropped in a weird little space to wander around. That might be like the first of those. Probably not the first, but the earliest I think back of those, to where it's, legally might not be a game, but is like an interactive thing where you get to wander around a neat little space.
Jesus. So yeah, again, at what point is it weird and what point is it psychedelic?
Yeah.
Where's the fetish? There's a lot of blurred lines.
I think you might have. Did you miss two? Alex Armstrong and Dr. Theo? Or am I insane?
Those are the next ones.
Cruelty Squad and then. Oh, did I just have mine out of order?
Yeah.
You might be, yeah.
Okay. Apologies.
Alex Armstrong gives $2. There's thoughts on psychedelic weird like Cruelty Squad.
Psychedelic. Interesting. It felt very
what was the name of that
you know,
that
which I guess could be the same thing.
splatformer that just came out a little while ago? Remember, I showed you guys a trailer for it, and I was like, this thing gives me a headache, but I like that it exists.
Folk
Gross,
stories.
like pulsating one.
I do not recall.
No, I don't know.
I mean,
yeah.
this with Cruelty Squad, I think, really goes into it of weird. Sometimes can be a reaction of the culture.
Yeah, yeah,
Post-punk, punk, you know.
that's definitely what Cruelty Squad feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. Like I again, that feels like a really going for the fence there.
I think there's a point where it runs up against the problem of making things really hard to read.
Sure.
I mean, when you've got like fuzzy green text over a purple background, then we just flat out can't read the text, and then the impact is lost.
Yeah, but you know that's anti-establishment, man. Reading.
Whoa,
Oh, I see exactly what you
yeah.
mean. Look at that. Wow. That is
Yeah.
rough.
Oh,
he's
and at
dying.
that point, at what point is that sort of getting in the way of the intended message? Unless it is the intended message.
I'm gonna make a game that's shit to play. So fight the man.
Mm.
All right.
Dr. Theo gives $5 and says, I've seen online why Japanese and Americans find each other so fascinating is because we are so similar, yet completely different at the same time.
I
See
find them
that.
fascinating because I'm Mexican and we're very similar and not different at all. To the point where we rip off each other's culture. In Japan, there is a cholo culture. We steal their anime, and they always try to send cease and desist. It's a thing. Wow.
I love it.
I always think Japan and Britain have a sort of kinship that comes from both being island nations that eat a lot of fish and are populated by extremely straight-laced, humorless gits.
Long lost brothers.
Japanese culture was quite big when Japan first opened up to the West. I mean, remember the Mikado?
Mm-hmm.
That was like a British light opera created because Japanese culture was infusing a lot of British high class culture at the time.
Mm-mm.
And then there's Japanese culture like Helsing, which is set in Britain.
The anime Helsing, is that? Oh, I guess it's Van Helsing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. The anime just called Helsing in reference to Van Helsing. And has a version of Dracula in it who calls himself Alucard because apparently it never ceases to be amusing to spell Dracula backwards.
They do like their Dracula, don't they? Symphony of the Night, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, first chapter is Dracula.
Yeah, I think Japan generally has a big thing for sort of European pulp literature.
We do.
And that's why they really like Les Miserables and
Arsène Lupin.
I was trying to remember the name. Arsène Lupin, the French literature character. But anyway, Ryan Betts, member for 3 months in tip jar. Thank you very much. And then Eloise gives £2 and says, classic weird Skull Monkeys.
Skull Monkeys was a weird one. That was by the Earthworm Jim guy, right?
Well, yeah, Earthworm Jim is pretty weird in itself.
Yeah.
But yes.
Toe Jam and Earl.
And
we
they
had
came
a lot
across
of
Skull
those.
Monkeys.
Yeah, I kind of remember it being almost like Oddworld, where it felt almost like claymation. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, it's a sequel to The Neverhood. Interesting.
I don't even know what the Neverhood is.
It was a claymation point-and-click adventure.
Well, there you go.
Yes. Niras25 gives 25 rons and says, one of the favorite weird spin-offs is Far Cry Blood Dragon. I wish there was more stuff like that. What game would you like to see in that style?
Oh, they did,
Well, that was before sort of 80s neon wave stuff became sort of popular.
Yeah.
In indie games. I think you can see that in shit like Cookie Cutter as well.
Yeah. That felt like I thought that was going to become a thing. Ubisoft started doing more and more kind of in between annual releases have something that, like a Majora's Mask is able to reuse assets but do something strange with them, like really lean into something that might be a little more risk-taking.
Yeah, I assumed they were going to do something like that, but then they And it didn't.
Yeah.
They did the Red Dead Zombies. Remember?
Yeah, Red Dead Zombie. That's another great example of that. Yeah.
Eric Weikart gives 50 arses and says, what about games that break your mind? Like the twist of 4D Golf, where the final course is actually, spoiler, just the footage gives me a headache.
4D Golf is great.
Games that break your mind. I like those. Again, those are very shoot, I forgot the name. Non-Euclidean type geometry.
Yeah.
Very antechamber. Loaded with that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, Maquette, even a little bit of that superliminal. And the 4D Golf is a game that the twist at the end is really good. It's really good. It's very hard to wrap your head around, but it's a very clever little twist. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Sadly, this is a game you have to play with a mouse. You can play this game on Steam Deck.
Oh,
I just did my computer like a real
like a
knob.
adult,
like a real adult doing my 4D taxes.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh, that was intense.
Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, stream of consciousness only works if it's not car crash fascinating, Yahtzee. How does it make sense to Yuji Naka that the fox turned into a cube? No, quite. I mean, that wasn't much fun, but it was interesting to talk about.
I love Yuji. Are we talking about Balan?
Yes.
Balan
Underpants, or whatever it was.
Oh, no. I wonder if we're ever going to get a sequel.
Not till he's out of prison.
Oh.
Hick Warrior, member for 6 months in the Green Gang, says, it's been half a year by now. Time flies.
Holy
I know, right?
6 whole months.
And then Bajango gives $10 and says, being a kid begging to buy a used copy of Killer 7 on the GameCube and having my dad exclaiming, what the fuck are you playing? Then slowly being enamored is why Suda is always the best weird to me. Yep.
Yeah, I gotta try
That's
these games.
Still his opus, if you ask me. It's on Steam now. You've got no excuse not to try out Killer 7.
Oh, aside from being lazy, was the best excuse. But the
best excuse.
Last 2 weeks has been this giving very Suda 1. Who is this? I thought we were talking Sudafed. Like
Sudafed.
This is what it's like to be OD'd on Sudafed, and now it looks like this. So
I could use some Sudafed right about now, actually.
I bet. Who made
there was a good
Beautiful Joe? Who made
I was about to say that was Kamiya, right?
Yes,
but that whole era of kind of platinum, like the failed Platinum 5, Resi
the Capcom 5, yes,
the Capcom 5, yeah, not the Platinum 5. But I feel like Resi aside, even though Resi, like the merchant, is a weird thing in a AAA game, and I guess Resi 4 does have a lot of weird. Original one, like leans into the weird. But all those games, whether they're Beautiful Joe or Killer 7 or Piano 3, all embrace the weird in good ways.
Yeah. Only 3 of them really took off, but still, 3 out of 5. That's a pretty good ratio.
Yeah.
Rose Delta gives $5 and says, love weird, but a lot of indie games that fall into the weird camp, Strobe and Flash, that isolate a lot of their audience, including me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's you're skill diffing you.
I think that's what
Szymanski.
Yeah.
Very crispy visuals.
It's definitely where the psychedelic comes into things.
Yeah.
I tend to think of as like the sort of Persona 5 visual style as a psychedelic.
Yeah, without being like literally like health warning, like something like a Cruelty Squad or something with flashing lights, a seizure warning.
Oh, Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom is very flashy.
Yeah.
Even Children of the Sun, the way like the mission complete icon just sort of flashes all over the screen.
Oh, Crimson was the name of that game I was thinking of that I think I shared in a meeting with you guys. That's that 2D platformer set in hell that is just a fucking panic attack when you look at it. And it's like not something I want to spend a lot of time with, Crimson with a K. But it's something where I'm like, well, that is a unique visual identity, even though I do have a headache after looking at it.
Yeah, some of them, it feels like that kind of is the identity. Hyper Demon. Dear God.
Oh, Christ.
I don't know if it's safe to show that, Eric, but Hyper Demon is like, oh man, an acid trip inside a mirror.
Yeah.
Or a disco ball.
Yeah, devil daggers, Umper even, yeah.
Raziel, member for 6 months in the Green Gang, says, gonna use this to wish you all happy half birthday. Well, if you wait till Friday, Raziel, you could wish me a happy actual birthday.
Ooh.
Because Starstruck Vagabond's coming out on my birthday and on Friday, and you could all buy it as a present to me. Fox D and gives $5 and says, getting off the critical path in a Red Dead Redemption game is just asking for something weird to happen.
I like that. I do like games where if you follow the main story, it's whatever. But you go off-roading, this is at your own risk.
Yeah.
The Witcher was a little like that. Not too far gone, but I did like that the tone seemed very different off the beaten path.
I think Yakuza falls into that category as well. I always think the main plots of Yakuza games have gotten pretty samey for me over the years.
Right.
Oh, let's defend an innocent woman from some evil conspiracy we've gotten embroiled in to take over Japan and end it all with a shirtless fist fight on a roof.
Sounds great.
Beauty.
Fungus Finder gives $2 and says, at what point does weird become inaccessible? Well, as I was saying, the point where you can't really tell what's going on and you're giving everyone epileptic seizures just from looking at it.
Literally, some of those games we just mentioned, I think, would fall under the category of, this is impossible. Or if it's weird and it requires, like, you sometimes see games at GDC that require, like, a very unique one-of-one setup. Like, at that point, it's kind of, that's you need to like be there in order to play on their strange. This thing is projecting on the side of a refrigerator, and you control it by opening the fridge.
It can also be there is such a thing as too niche. Number one, and then if you get weird in the gameplay, so like Inscription, a lot of people love it, but for a lot of people, just roguelike deck builders don't vibe with them, so they can't even get out of chapter 1.
Yeah,
they don't
my
get
problem.
to, like the meat of it. Yeah.
Sean Harriman, member for 5 months in the Green Gang, says, is Scorn too weird? When is too weird a bad game?
Wasn't weird enough.
Scorn, I would describe as internally consistent, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until they gave you the gun. Then I went, oh no.
Yeah.
It was great. It left a good first impression on me in terms of being gross and grossing me out. And if I just want a game to leave me feeling something, I guess it was successful there. Ultimately, it felt kind of boring mechanically, but good first impression.
Yeah.
Kind of anticlimactic as well.
Yeah.
You ever feel numb? Here you go.
Yeah.
Dr. Theo gives $5 and says, off topic, but I feel like mascot horror is getting into its punk era with games like Finding Frankie, that is a parkour horror game. Yeah, I feel like mascot horror kind of left me behind a little bit because I was never into Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah.
That's the only one.
I'm
Name 3.
Five Nights at Freddy's, the other one, and the other one.
Bendy and the Ink Machine.
Yes, and what's that one with the weird blue thing with the spiky hair?
Sonic.
Goku?
Never mind.
Well, this looks interesting at least.
Yeah, this one, this Finding Frankie, it seems like it's like parkour, like horror parkour. I like to have something chasing me while I'm doing sick wall runs.
Yeah, this is very
cool.
like Mirror's Edge through a Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, I can work with this. I do imagine we are going to get to a point to where the people who were younger or grew up playing these mascot horror games are going to get to an age where they make their own games, and I feel like they're going to make interesting things in the same way that we have an era of people who grew up on 3D platformers and are now making cool things like Pseudo Regalia and Corn Kids and Hat in Time and shit like that.
What was the one with the horrifying train? Choo Choo Charles?
Choo Choo Charles.
Choo Choo Charles, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Fungus Finder gives $2 and says, does weird have to also be funny to work?
No, but that's my favorite.
No?
Not necessarily. Yeah, I like funny weird. I find a lot of weird funny. But no, like weird funny and weird horrific are different things. But they're both equally valid, I'd say.
Weird, weird sad, weird anything.
Yeah, weird ominous.
Indica had that weird dark comedy going for it. Well, that's redundant, isn't it?
Weird ambivalence, weird fondness for pies.
I also think laughing can sometimes be a normal reaction to something that is so strange and alienating that I think like once or twice during Indica, I laughed just because it was like, well, I don't even know what my reaction should be right now, so I'm just gonna laugh at like
Are you
how
talking
out of
about when
place I feel.
you talking the high speed chase or you're getting shot at?
The high speed, yeah, shit like that. Where you're like, well, this is absurd, right? I'm supposed to like absurd
because his eyesight's so shit.
Yeah.
Bajango goes $5 and says, "How about Oddworld? The first game opening FMV scared me as a child."
I never got into them. There's something about that. I'm gonna lump a bunch of games together, but that kind of rotoscoped feeling 2D platforming. If you go back to the original Prince of Persia, to Karateka, this
cinematic platformers.
Yeah, flashback, out of this world. That stuff just never. I don't know, never vibed with me.
For me, Oddworld had like an interesting sort of alien atmosphere, but then started to lean too much into shitty comedy. And that was where it sort of lost me.
Oh no. Borderlands it up.
Kind of. But more in a sort of Jar Jar Binks sort of vein.
Oh.
No.
George Lucas additions to the Star Wars special editions. Sort of vein of humor.
Shout out to George Lucas in the chat.
A winged potato. I remember for 6 months in the Green Gang says, "Really appreciated Arctic Eggs weirdness."
Yeah.
There we go.
Arctic Eggs. More egg cooking simulators. Any game where you could throw a couple heaters inside of a pan with eggs. Easy, medium, hard difficulties are just the depth of the pan. So hard, it is just the flat pan. There's literally no edge to it. Whereas easy, it's like you're almost cooking on a wok. Let me tell you, Arctic Eggs.
Well, it's you could certainly get a gameplay challenge out of it. Making sure you take the egg off the heat at exactly the right moment.
Yeah. Enjoy it while it's here, because this will eventually be seen as pretentious avant-garde, and we'll go back to ties and cyan hair.
There you go.
For a little bit.
Tommy Dionorth's Archives gives $2 Canadian. Says, "Remember when Ariana Grande was in Brave Exvius?"
Yeah, she was in a Final Fantasy mobile game.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what Brave Exvius is.
Oh. What you know?
Yeah, I don't have anything more to add to that other than I don't.
She was there. I witnessed.
She was there.
I seen it.
Fungus Finding is $2 and says, "Oh God, the baby so loud, my ears, my poor sweet ears."
Excuse me. Did someone's baby make noise on the stream, or is this just Fungus Finder's newborn that's being loud?
Yeah, they'll do that.
From a weird game.
Jules Rowe gives €2 and says, "Swery games, Deadly Premonition or The Missing." Yeah, Swery feels like poor man's Suda 5-1 and who got married to poor man's Hideo Kojima and had a little stumpy baby.
Oh, a little stumpy. Yeah, I didn't really get into Deadly Premonition, mostly because I was like, I could just watch Twin Peaks. What if I just do that instead? And I like Twin Peaks and I like David Lynch, so I don't know. Whereas Suda feels like he does weird things that really lean into some of the strengths of the medium.
Yeah,
it's a weird game.
I feel
Mist
feels like a weird game to me.
Well, it was weird in the sense of being one of the first of those sorts of games.
It was like stupidly popular, though. It was like a real normie game. Like my dad bought it.
Just the composition, the layout, and all that. I was like, how odd for like a submarine to be over here with a piano, no less.
That definitely felt like someone describing their dream. And then
there was certainly a surrealist air to it. I know. Bajango gives $10 and says, "I encourage you to play the PS1 game Cyberdeck, a truly bizarre snowboarding game. One of the most bizarre games I've ever owned. Marty, buy a copy and play it."
Cyberdeck.
It's an order.
That's an order. I will.
All right.
Like,
if it's under $20, I'll buy it right now.
SSX Tricky meets what?
Something.
Something itself.
It is $250. I am not buying it. But a $20 limit and
fucking collector's market.
I will download it off of Vim's Lair.
Blistered Soul gives £2 and says, "Scott Cawthon games before FNAF, like Desolate Hope."
Yeah, he always made weird games. They just at one point he made a marketable one. It's interesting.
And then he hit the big time, sold out, makes fucking children's books now.
While counting his money.
Robo Knob the Snob gives 69 euros and says the Silver Case games by Suda51 were great and even weirder than Killer 7. Deadly Premonition is another favourite of mine. Shame it was broken. BTW, can you think of games that mixed weird with serious? Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. How about that?
Ooh. Oh, that's a really good one. Wow. Yeah. I was going to say, like the cartoony anthropomorphic ones tend to do that. Cult of the Lamb, Another Crab's Treasure.
Yeah.
What about Lorelei and the Laser Eyes? Where do you think that fits in?
That fits in very well. That is, it's also really good at throwing things that at first feel like strange non sequiturs. That as you get deeper in, you realize that everything is connected.
Oh no, the Witness again.
Oh no, it's the Witness again. But yeah, in terms of sort of oscillating tones, I think Majora's Mask does a good job. It has a little freak-like tingle scattered throughout the game, but then also these like really great little stories you could find of people kind of accepting death and trying to find love at the end of a dying world.
Fun.
Mm-hmm.
Robo Knob the Snob gives €5. Says, and if you have 2 hours to spare, Fatum Batella and Milk Inside a Bag of Milk Inside a Bag of Milk video game are mighty weird.
Let me say, I once had a stream on my personal channel where I streamed a bunch of weird games, and I played Milk Inside of a Bag of Milk Inside of a Bag of Milk, and chat rebelled against me. They were so adamantly against it. So anyone who was in that chat and who was against Milk Inside of a Bag of Milk, you're off the weird train. You don't get to be on the weird train anymore.
A short story about what sort of challenges everyday little things can be. Help the girl buy milk, be the first not to disappoint her.
Then there's a sequel, Milk Outside of a Bag of Milk, Outside of a Bag of Milk.
This is a Canadian game.
Overwhelmingly positive reviews.
Yeah,
it's good. It's a nice little thing. In and out of your life.
Well, there you go. Fungus Finder gives $2 and says, is Dokapon weird? I'd say so, in a good way. Well...
Yeah, Marty, is it?
I would say it's weird in that it feels at times like you're playing a game with house rules, like where the rules don't quite make sense. But once you've seen something the first time, it's not weird again. Like once the first time your character gets abducted by an alien, you're like, what? But the next time it comes up, it's just a gameplay mechanic. So I feel like it gets less weird as it goes on, if that's possible.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it usually works.
We say that, but every time we get comfortable, like something new comes through. It's just always throwing something. I bet second playtime will be all right.
Yeah, there you go.
It's just unfamiliar.
Jules Rowe gives €2 and says point and click game called Dropsy. Really like it. I think I know that one.
Yeah, it was like a scary looking clown. I don't like scary clowns.
Yeah, you don't like scary clowns?
Well, no, I'm not like afraid of them. I just don't. I just feel like there's so many scary clowns, and like between fucking It and the Rob Zombie movies and Terrifier, like I don't need any more scary clowns.
Was that an Adventure Game Studio game, Dropsy?
I don't know. That wasn't the one that Ron Gilbert. No, that was Thimbleweed Park. Tumbleweed Park.
Yeah.
Tumbleweed.
Oh, there you go. Blue McDee's Nuts gives $2. Says have a stretch panic on the PS2 for your Moon Day.
Ba-na-na-na-na. It's Stretch Panic. I held it up to the camera.
That's what you were digging for.
I did like half an hour ago when that one came in. I rolled back a little bit to grab it.
Look at that.
What a game.
Look at that.
It's a game where you just stretch. Get a good stretch on. We need more stretch mods.
Like Nobby Nobby Boy.
Yeah, that's a good stretch 'em up. Absolutely a good stretch 'em
up. Fox D gives $5 and says trying to explain a mundane game to a non-gamer can be meta weird. You just drive a truck around, that's it. That'll get you looked at funny. Well,
I still think that the truck driving games, I'm glad you like them, and I just don't get it.
I
just don't get it. It seems great.
You like driving?
Yeah, but I like driving normal cars. It's like a regular old car.
You like driving trucks though, so different.
I've never driven a truck. I've driven moving vans, and they've been they made me anxious.
Right.
Right.
Also, I apologize. It's just the loudest rain happening outside my window, and I just don't know how to. I can't turn the rain off. So if
No
rain
worries.
noise comes through, my apologies.
It's white noise is soothing.
There you go.
Tsunami Dusha gives $20 and then says nothing.
Oh,
Thank you very much,
What a
Tsunami
Chad.
Dusha.
What a chat.
And then Joshua Walker gives $10 and says there is a game called Tomac Saved the Erath Story for PS2 in Japan where you date a head in a flower pot.
Hell yeah.
That's it. Hell yeah.
How kooky.
This seems great.
Is that see? I wonder. Is that weird to them too, or is it just weird to us culturally?
Who the fuck knows?
What, dating a head inside of a flower pot?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. I'll ask when I go to Japan later this fall. I'll ask. I'll see if I can spot any people dating flower pots.
Yoshi Katoshi gives $4.99 and says Silent Hill Book of Memories was weird. Dungeon Crawlers and Silent Hill don't go well together.
That was just bad.
I guess that is pretty weird.
It was just bad.
I was like, what are you doing mixing these two things? Like a peanut butter and ham sandwich. What are we doing?
Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says the weird games I like most are Persona and Yakuza, where the serious stuff juxtaposes the silly and weird, and yet it's fun. I see why you like them, Yahtzee.
That's because he's a weeb.
Yeah, I like the juxtaposition. One might argue weird only works with juxtaposition.
The way you guys sell it is curious to me because it's like you're like, oh, the one thing gives you a break from the other thing. It's like getting punched in the face is a nice break from getting punched in the nads. So I still have to carve out some time to experience this.
No, but it's more of you don't want to be the person who has the same lunch every day for a year straight, right?
Mm.
So it's like oscillating between two meals you like so that you don't get sick of one. And the two meals complement each other. The better you do at breakfast, the better your dinner tastes. I don't know how that works. But
Yeah, that classic saying.
yeah.
Wizard of the Void.
No true Scotsman.
Wizard of the Void gives $20 and says, devious bastard, kill myself button in Consuming Shadow got me on good run. That is a genuine weirdness game. A few dollars for future games.
What's
Thank
your
you very
weirdest
much,
game,
Mr.
would you say?
My weirdest
Apocalypse.
game?
It's gotta be.
Hogpocalypse Now. I'd say possibly
Fuck that
maybe Hatfall. That was me deliberately trying to be one of those out there weird Frog Faction style games.
I think the hog one was my favorite simply because again you went I was thinking of Equilibrium, why not try out that gun kata, and then the Texans having their problems with their pigs. That was such a fun one to see come through.
The best for sometimes good ideas can come if you just combine two seemingly unrelated things together.
There you go.
Love it.
Sovereign gives €5 and says, wait a sec, does Danganronpa count as a magenta game due to all the characters bleeding the stuff? Same goes for that retro shooter Sulaco, I guess.
But what was it made? It might have preceded the magenta.
Danganronpa was like Vita. That was like a Vita game. That was
it's pretty old.
Yeah,
15 years old.
It's the Citizen Kane of board games. Enough.
Well, when I say magenta as a genre, I'm not specifically referring to instances of the color.
Yeah.
It's just because such games often employ magenta in specific contexts. Often in characters' haircuts for some reason.
Yeah.
They just add splashes of neon color to emphasize the "woo, we're punk and free-spirited" sort of vibe.
Is it a colorblind thing? Like, is one of the most easy to differentiate hairs?
I don't know. It's often used as like the transparency color in a lot of like game engines and art engines.
What was Danganronpa rated? Like, was the reason for the purple? Is it rated M? Oh, it is M. Never mind.
Of course.
I was wondering. No, I was just wondering if they did the magenta blood because if it was like a thing, we can skirt around an M rating by showing people get violently murdered, but the blood's purple, so you can't get mad.
There you go. Laura gives $10 and says, I remember a strange game on the GameCube called Gotcha Force, where you collect toys that are aliens and make them fight each other.
That's just Pokemon.
Yeah, that's just Pokemon, isn't it?
GameCube had some goodies. Cubivore, that was a weird one. Chibi Robo, Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. Speaking of our good friend Yuji Naka, a 3D platformer where you just roll a big egg.
Oh yeah,
that was definitely him getting some sexual fetishes out there.
Nah, you're going too far. So what if Sisyphus but egg?
No, he's Yuji Naga's a big Eggman.
Well, we know that because he literally created a character named Eggman.
God, my voice hurts so much. Casey, I was literally going to mention you're the only other person I've heard bring up Gotcha Force. Casey's the world's number one Gotcha Force defender.
Right. Wesley Thomas gives $5 Canadian and says, I find that pinball games are inherently weird because there's just enough control over events to make them not gambling. It's not even gambling because you can't make any money back from it, can you?
Yeah.
Well, what are you gambling here? You
I'm
can't
so
lose my
bad at
house
pinball.
playing pinball.
I love pinball, and I'm so goddamn terrible at it.
I don't think it's possible to be bad at pinball. I think every now and again the ball just goes right down the middle of the board, and you can't do shit to stop it.
You could have prevented that if you could only see 50 steps ahead.
If you could maybe shove the board with your hand or something.
Give it a big hip thrust.
Maybe if the paddles were bigger.
Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, paranormal comedy equals weird. Dida game one day.
Dida.
It's enough work writing books about it, Alex Armstrong.
Dida.
It would probably have to be like a point-and-click adventure game or something.
What is that?
That's my book series, The Department of Extra-Dimensional Affairs.
Oh, you have a whole like name over it. Okay.
Yeah. Incorporating the book's differently amorphous and existentially challenged. Tsunami Dusha gives $5 and says, one of the weirdest platformers I could think of is Mischief Makers for the N64. Grabbing and shaking things change their priorities is bizarre.
Yeah, that's great. That was a great treasure game for N64. I like it. That and Tumba. Two best platformers where you got to grab shit. Tumba. And Tumba's coming back this fall. Pink hair, that little freak. Him and Gex. I'm very excited to see.
Does he speak English?
Tumba? I don't think so. I think he's a cave boy. I don't know if he like the pigmen speak to him. I don't think he ever. I think he's just like fucking. Let me go. I'm a cave boy.
One of my earliest memories learning English was Spyro and Tumba. And
me too.
Man, maybe I just talk like Tumba now.
Yeah.
Dr. Zebra gives $1.99 and says, have a great day, you filthy animals.
Oh, thanks, Dr. Zebra.
New Year.
And then Beneath 1111 gives 100 Swedish krona and says, can we expect different editions of Starstruck Vagabond, like a Space Trucker edition, pre-order edition, Walmart edition, or a collector's edition with a 25-centimeter statue of Hole? Also, let Marty read this. Oops, too late. Sorry.
Yeah,
you got to put that at the beginning of the message.
Where's your 9 inches of venom? Huh?
No, I ain't doing fucking editions. I think we're going to be selling the soundtrack once I get the files in separately, and we're going to do like a deluxe edition that bundles the game with the soundtrack. So, which, you know, there you go, if that counts. Frozen Socks 231
gives... Game
gives...
of the Year edition. Just doesn't matter. Just make one called
Well, you
Game
need
of the Year.
I think, for honesty's sake, I'd want to wait for at least one media outlet to declare it Game of the Year before I did that.
I'll give you mine.
That's typically what you have to do.
Get fucked, Animal Well. It's all about Star Trek Vagabond now.
Frozen Socks 231 gives $5. Says, sorry, just tuned in. You guys better have talked about God Hand. We didn't. Well, we haven't talked about Shinji Mikami at all, generally.
This thing I meant to bring up, by the way, now's a good time. God Hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a fun game.
That might have been the culmination of that PS2 era of like rampant weirdness that I love. That everything kind of led to that. Your Killer Sevens, your Katamaris.
One of the bosses is just a gorilla in pants.
Great.
What's not to love? Geldon Yetich gives $10 and says, I tried out Underspace the other day and I was impressed with the oddball aliens, cultural references, and Cthulian nebulous space complete with odd undersea fixtures. I did that on Yahtzee Tries like way back. It might have still been with the Escapist.
Yeah, that was us
at that point.
People were upset because Starfield sucked, and they're like, "This is like Freelancer," but I don't think we saw anything creepy, even though the dev kept trying to drive us to it.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the big selling point. I was like, you need to like lead with the big monsters, guys.
No.
A superb owner, member for 6 months in Tip Jar. Thank you very much. And then gives $5 and says, here's your week-old out-of-context Windbreaker quote. If every man was freeballing, we'd all have a good time. Yahtzee. I stand by it.
Yeah.
Although you wouldn't be able to run very much. Because everything would be slapping around.
No,
Slopping around.
but what a melody.
Slopping around.
Goo Bomber gives $5 and says, I want to mention Void Stranger. It isn't weird in the zany sense, but it gets increasingly wild as it goes on. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
It's intimidating seeing all the reviews, and it's like, it's amazing. 400 hours played. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is one of those games that like I feel like filters a lot of people out by the time the weird shit really comes.
like
Not
Mario.
like a you're bad at the game, but it's just like it demands a lot from you. I'm a big fan of Sokoban. There's a big Sokoban coming out this week that I'm excited for that I've been playing called Isles of Sea and Sky. I just put the link. It's like a little open world Sokoban where you play just a little dude going to these different islands. It's great.
It's
Big
funny.
fan.
I want all games to be like that, where they're normal. Even the normal games present normally, and then eventually, like, they get comfortable enough with me to be like, all right, I'm gonna take the socks off now. It just gets really weird.
Oh, Devolver Digital's doing a 15th anniversary sale. They got this whole graphic with like the Hotline Miami dude and the sheep from Cult of the Lamb sharing a birthday cake.
Devolver and I think you already mentioned earlier, Annapurna. I feel like they're almost in the same way that if you see like there's an A24 movie coming out, you're like, ooh, this is gonna have some weirdness in it, and I feel like both of those two publishers have the same kind of pedigree.
Oh, is this the Sokoban thing? Yeah, I saw that. I thought it was a Zelda type beat. I didn't know it was Sokoban.
It almost feels a little bit like Zelda because you're collecting keys, and there's kind of there's abilities and stuff, but ultimately what you do is Sokobaning, is pushing blocks.
Cool.
Yeah, it's
I
good stuff.
love whenever I think, this genre is solved. That's it, as far as it's ever gonna get, and somebody comes through. But here I come.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's in the. I think it comes out Wednesday. We have it in the shared account. It's very neat.
Anyway, Quincy Martin gives $5 and says, really been missing the Beautiful Joe series of 2 games.
He was so
Not really
graceful and elegant.
I think there was a DS game. I don't know if that counts.
Not much of a
Why
series.
has no one said Disco Elysium yet? Talk about a weird game.
Ah.
Yeah.
That Eastern European weird I like.
Yeah. Eastern European weird. That and Indica.
Need to be pretty literate, though. Not the kind of weird where it just gives you epileptic seizures all the time.
Yeah.
Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, Miyamoto is Tingle, if you think about it, Marty.
Oh, no.
Oh, and I missed Dr. Theo, who gave $2 to say, topic idea, what counts as horror-themed games? Oh,
That could be
Christ.
interesting.
Bring that up next week, maybe.
What, something a little spooky?
We'll save it for Halloween.
Yeah, in
we're not
5
gonna
months.
We're not going to remember that. I think you also missed Gelden's $5 dono.
Oh, so I did. Another good weird game was Vangers, which was auto-duel if everyone turned into post-apocalyptic bugs that spoke in word salads. Okay.
Classic Vangers. A little Vanger banger.
Starting to get tired and hungry. Let's rattle these. But Django gives $5, says, if I knew Cyberdeck was worth $250 back then, I would have held on to that trash bizarre game. Honestly, one of the worst games I've ever played.
So many games I sold for fucking peanuts. Because I was like, if I put these 10 games in, I could get Jack 3 for free. And those games are just $1,000 now.
I had shelves full of boxed games that I didn't keep with me when I moved from Australia. I had a boxed copy of Shell Shock 2 on the PlayStation 3. It was really bad.
What? There's a buy it now, $7. What are you guys on about? $7 shipping. One people have this in their cart though, so probably running up the price.
One people have this in the cart.
Yeah, $12.71. What did y'all went to the worst seller on there and caved to his demands?
Move on that one quick, kids. Chinmail gives £5 and says, any of you guys familiar with WizKid, the story of Whizball 2 for the Amiga? Bonkers, both visually and in gameplay. No,
I don't know anything about Amiga. I'm blinded.
I mean, I had an Amiga and I don't know what the hell you're on about, Chinmail.
Oh, creepy looking green guy. All right.
Well, yeah, that game looks like an Amiga game, certainly. Saber Lily gives $1.99 and says, Seaman was the weirdest game I've ever played. Yeah, I had a feeling that might come up.
Yeah. It was like having a little pet, but your pet was a fish with a man's face. and you needed to talk to him through a microphone that did not work well because this was 1999.
Oh, I remember this thing.
Yeah, for the Dreamcast.
Why'd you guys buy these things?
It said Seaman. I thought I'd be able to get my rocks off. I was wrong.
It's a different time.
Yes.
It's a different time.
Gold Pirak gives $10 and says, Yahtzee, what did you build Starstruck in? How much were you able to rely on built-in tools versus your coding knowledge? Excited for the game. Not enough to use an exclamation point because I'm a dick. Well, since you ask, Gold Pirak, why don't you go ahead and watch the beginning of this stream again, in which you will see an advert for the very program I made, Starstruck Vagabond in Game Maker, which is suitable for both newcomers and experienced developers, because it's got a lot of built-in tools where you can sort of drag and drop your game, or you, if you don't want to use that, you can just get right into the code and get into the weeds, as it were, from the ground up.
Are you more confident in your coding now? I know you used to be self-conscious about that.
Yes, I am slightly more confident, but not enough to want to let anyone else look at the code of Starstruck Vagabond at the moment.
Oh.
I mean, if I was making a new game from scratch, I'm sure it would be much neater.
Nah, don't make code just for people to look at. What was it, that Balatro coding? Everyone was making fun of him. I didn't even understand what I was seeing. I was like, it just looks like one big list.
Yeah,
you're not supposed to make it look like that.
There's a lot of code Nazis out there. Oh, you didn't even notate it. I'll piss off.
And the Balatro guy is like, oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. I'm too busy counting my money.
What's that? Yeah, just keep hearing ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching.
If it works, then it's good code. That's my attitude.
Exactly.
John Fu gives €2 and says, Yahtzee, favourite Monster Munch flavour? Pickled onion? Thanks for the question. Gay Bear Bro 2, member for 6 months in tip jar. Thank you very much. And then gives $10 to say, first time catching a stream in months. Sorry for not donating more. Well, I guess I'll forgive you, Gay Bear Bro 2.
Gay Bear Bro 2, thank you so much. What is Monster Munch?
Cereal.
No, it's a snack in the vein of...
He said dill pickle. What? It can't be serious.
Yeah. It's a maize snack in the vein of Funyuns and such like.
Like Lorelei and the Laser Eyes? A maze?
Mm-hmm. That was like one.
No, maize as in corn. It's a corn snack, if we must use old world terminology. Anyway, Eric Weikart comes back with 50 arses and says, Blood Will Tell by Sega for PS2. You're a samurai who needs to recover 48 stolen organs. The game even starts you blind, but is black and white, lol.
Hey, that's great. I like that.
That sounds pretty crazy.
Remember Never Dead?
Organs.
That was very bad. But
Are they yours?
Never Dead.
Yes.
Your body could explode and you can like just be a head rolling around.
Yeah, I always said that game's mistake was trying to make it a combat mechanic rather than a puzzling mechanic.
Yes.
Like, hey, like throw your head into a vent like it's Metroid Prime or something.
Yeah.
That would work.
What was that maze hand game you liked, Marty?
Handshakes.
Yep, where you dehandicate yourself.
You gotta cut your own hand off in order to solve a couple puzzles.
Yeah.
$5 from Gulparak, who says Shadow Hearts PS2 2001 at the time was really weird for a JRPG. Real world setting, World War I with mysticism, oddball sense of humor, more odd, I mean.
Yeah, like Rasputin was in the game, so it was like JRPG where fucking Rasputin's just trolling around. Good shit.
Fun.
Yeah. Bajango gives $5 and says, please put a quote on the Steam page with Marty just saying, fuck it, whatever, GOTY edition, before a GOTY edition comes out.
Fine. You got my vote. That's fine. You and Arctic, I already forgot what the name of the game was. Arctic Monkeys? Arctic Eggs.
Arctic Eggs, yeah.
Arctic Monkeys is a band.
It's a band, yes. Gives $1.99, says, shout out to Dipshit the Clown, hope you're doing okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen you in a while, Dipshit the Clown. I hope everything's good.
Maybe he got a different job. Now he's Dipshit the quantity surveyor. Ryan Betts gives $5 and says, pop quiz for Marty. Without using Google, please define the no true Scotsman argument and use it in a sentence relating to this week's topic.
Fuck. It's a logical fallacy where you move the goalposts.
He's good, man.
It's a logical fallacy where you move the goalposts. Where you can't win the
Pretty
argument
much.
because you keep saying, "Oh well." Yeah, I don't know.
Well, use it in a sentence then.
No true Scotsman would think that Yuji Naka is in jail.
Okay, I think we're all getting very tired. So let's wrap up these last few super chats so we can all go off and sleep.
I was sick all weekend.
Jeffrey Summerhays gives $5 says, how about Double Fine? I find them a bit hit and miss, but I always wonder how nuts the person was who came up with the idea.
Yeah, they have those interesting kind of game jams, the Amnesia Fortnights, where you got things like stacking out of an Iron Brigade and Headlander. Yeah, even if the games don't hit, I still like that they're built around an interesting mechanic usually.
Ramen gives $2 and says, late weird wreck where the water tastes like wine.
I never played that.
What
I
is
remember
this?
it. I remember it was like an American folk tale where you kind of wander across like a map of America and have these little. It's almost like a choose your own adventure, and you have these little stories written by different people.
Like heading out.
A little bit like heading out, honestly. Yeah,
that's cool looking.
Yeah, it's interesting. Dr. Theo gets $5 says, heard of the horror game Illbleed? It's a super weird Dreamcast game that I want to see a remaster for. Final boss is literally Sonic the Hedgehog. Actually, that's the final boss is not Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog is the boss fight for one of the game's chapters. And
damn, bro, fake
Illbleed is a game where it has a new game plus mode where at the end of it, your main character has lost all her clothes, and that's part of the reason why the final boss comes out to fight you.
Because we're naked?
Well, they've got a little scrap of paper on both their nipples and on their hoo-ha, so they're not actually naked.
Yeah, but you said that's why they fight us.
Yeah, well, someone comes out because they want to hit on you because you're a naked lady.
Ah, okay. We're fanning them off, I see.
Illbleed is another one of those games that is very expensive now. When I went on my Dreamcast spree, that game is like several $100s. Although maybe I keep looking at the wrong stores, which might be very possible.
Bit of a cult game now.
Yep.
Fox D gets $5 says, happy birthday to my cat, Catface, who celebrates 2 years of jumping up on my desk and running my characters off cliffs and trucks off the road tomorrow.
Oh, what a cutie. Catface.
Toffee's been known to walk across my keyboard when he wants my attention.
And do a line.
It's in January, I think.
Happy birthday, Toffee.
His birthday or his adoption day?
Adoption day. We don't know his birthday because we got him from a shelter.
No.
Fungus Finder gives $2 and says, is there going to be a Star Trek Discord channel? Maybe?
Sure, we can make a channel.
You get a whole Discord.
No, I'm sure we can just make a
none
channel
of us
on the second wind one where folks who are playing the game can talk about it.
Well, actually, we had one for internal development purposes. Perhaps we could open it up.
No.
Oh, finally, that's the last super chat. Yeah.
No, you missed one, and it's the most important super chat of them all right before Fungus Finder.
So I did. Bog the Pog gives $9.99 and says, shout out to Frost and Marty, if that's so important to you.
You try to suppress us. I can't believe it.
Yeah. How dare you?
Well, thanks for enjoying this little odyssey of the weird games that we like.
This was nice.
Why not share your own favorite weird games in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And while you're there, and if at any point during this podcast we reminded you of a game you'd forgotten about, you have to go to the Patreon. That's the rule.
Legally,
you have to both like the video, and then you have to go to the Patreon and consider subscribing.
This is going to backfire, and they're going to dislike it and rob us in the night.
This is a technique known as the call to action, which is apparently proved successful in the past.
Look at that.
Science.
I've been Yahtzee Croshaw, and here's some other twats who will also be signing off now.
Hi. You watch later today. Hidden Gems. They're going to be playing Dread Delusion. That's the game Jesse reviewed. That is like a real crunchy Gothic / early Elder Scrolls explore 'em up. So check that out, and we'll have great videos all week. Hachi, Machi, and if you're in the $5 column, check out Darren's excellent con running diary. He's already on part 6. He's seeing so many movies, going to premieres, wearing a tuxedo. He probably learned French by now. It's great.
Crazy.
Yeah. What about you, Frost?
New cult take just came out talking about how I vote with my wallet, because I don't like telling people what to do with their money, unlike someone else here. And so I'll just lead by example and throw my money down. I am subscribed to the Patreon. I don't know if the rest of you.
I have $1 sub, which is very dumb, just so I can see what's going on there.
So I can be a
I'm
voyeur.
going to invoice $12 at the end of the year.
And then we can invoice it. And then stream tomorrow, Better with Friends with Will. The plan is to go for X Defiant. If that doesn't work because the servers aren't up, we will do Fallout 76. Because we're we're just walking around, chilling in these live service games, see what's up. What's the vibe?
That's its new hot time, 7 p.m. Central, correct?
Yep.
Oh, did we miss a super chat? I read this one out, didn't I?
What?
Pretty sure I did.
Which one?
Just existing 45 gave $5. Say, hey guys, just want to say thank you for always being there. Makes you feel part of a community. Lots of love. Keep being awesome. Yahtzee is the gift.
Yeah, we said thank you so much.
You said you are part of the community, and I said it's a cult. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Just watch it back if you missed it. Yes, don't forget my fully ramblomatic this week. It will be on the subject of a little game called Another Crab's Treasure that you might know. I'll also have a semi-ramblomatic hitting on Thursday. And I will be appearing on Friday's DevHeads podcast to talk about my new game, Starstruck Vagabond, which is coming out on Friday and which you should all buy and wishlist now if you haven't.
Big two.
Yeah, you don't. Well, you don't have to invoice the wishlisting. You can wishlist whatever you like.
It's free. You hear that?
Yes, it's free to wishlist and pump our numbers up for the algorithm. I mean, you're not under no obligation to actually buy it if you wishlist it. But it makes us feel better if we see a lot of wish lists, just saying. Anyway, that'll be it from us. Catch you all next time.
Bye, everyone.
Well,
Thanks, Eric.